My sister dumped her kids on me. Now they're paying me back. But she thinks she deserves all the money. Hello everyone. Have you ever done something out of kindness, something you never expected anything in return for, only for it to come back and bite you in the worst way possible? Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I spent years raising my sister's kids when she abandoned them. I gave up so much, my time, my money, my energy, so they wouldn't have to grow up feeling unwanted. And now? Now that they're successful, happy, and financially stable? She's furious. Because they're giving back to me. And she's demanding that their money belongs to her. Let me back up. I'm 48 and my younger sister Diana is 46 and I never really got along. Even as a kid, she was difficult, selfish, manipulative, always entitled. She had this way of making people feel like they owed her something, like the world should just bend to her every whim. So, as soon as we finished high school, we went our separate ways. I went to college. She moved in with her rich boyfriend at 18 and never looked back. At first, my parents weren't thrilled. They wanted her to be independent, get an education, and make something of herself. But Diana? She never cared about their opinions. She did whatever she wanted and they just let her. By 20, she had twin girls. By 21, she had a son. And by 22, she was alone. Turns out that her rich boyfriend had been cheating on her for years. And when she found out, he didn't even fight for her. He just signed away his parental rights and paid child support to be done with her. She was devastated. But instead of stepping up as a mom, she spent years blaming everyone but herself. With no job, no education, and 3 toddlers to care for, she spiraled. At first, my parents helped her financially. I did too, despite our strained relationship. Not because I cared about her, but because those kids didn't deserve to suffer for her mistakes. She struggled to hold down a job, constantly making excuses about how hard life was. And I get it, being a single mom isn't easy. But the way she handled it was terrible. Instead of finding real stability, she just hopped from one bad relationship to another, constantly chasing after men to save her. And every time a relationship failed, she blamed her kids. She resented them for ruining her life. And she made sure they knew it. It got worse as they got older. I'd visit not for her, but for the kids. And every time, they'd cling to me. They were starved for attention, affection, and anything that made them feel like someone cared. And Diana? She'd just roll her eyes and say things like, "They love playing the victim." So dramatic. I wanted to scream. Because they weren't playing the victim. They were living it. For years I watched this cycle repeat. Diana is hopping from relationship to relationship, using child support to barely scrape by and treating her kids like burdens instead of people. I wanted to step in. To take them away from her. But legally? I couldn't. Because while she was a terrible mother, she wasn't doing anything that could justify taking them away. And if I tried, she'd make sure I never saw them again. So instead I did what I could. I was there for them. I gave them a safe space. I listened. And when they turned 18, they made a choice. They left. And they never looked back. The day they moved out, Diana lost her mind. "I wasted 18 years raising these ungrateful brats," she screamed. She blamed me. Accused me of stealing her kids. Told me that if I wanted to raise them so badly, I should have taken them when they were younger. I almost laughed in her face. Because raise them? She didn't raise them. They raised themselves. She had been too busy chasing after men, too busy blaming them for her failures to even be a mother. And now, they were finally choosing for themselves. And that killed her. After that, she cut everyone off. Not just me, but my parents too. She was furious that they didn't take her side, so she just disappeared. And honestly, no one missed her. Because without her, those kids thrived. It's been 7 years since they left her. 7 years of them building their own lives. My nephew? He's a pediatrician. One of my nieces is a teacher. The other owns a successful salon. And me? I never expected anything in return. I helped them because I loved them. Because they deserved a chance. But recently, they did something that left me speechless. And when Diana found out, she lost her mind. For the past 7 years, I watched those kids turn their lives around. I saw my nephew work his way through medical school, barely sleeping, barely surviving, but refusing to give up. I watched my nieces push past every doubt, every fear, to chase their dreams, one of them teaching underprivileged kids, the other building a thriving business from nothing. And through it all, not once did they look back at Diana. They never called. Never visited. They had made peace with the fact that she would never be the mother they deserved. And honestly, I thought that was the end of it. But then, they did something that shocked me. And when Diana found out, she lost her mind. It started with a family dinner. They had all flown in, my nephew from his residency, my nieces from their busy jobs. We were sitting around the table, laughing, catching up, just enjoying being together. Then, in the middle of dinner, my nephew cleared his throat. Auntie, we need to tell you something. I put my fork down, suddenly feeling nervous. What is it? I asked. My nieces exchanged a look, then one of them reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. She slid it across the table. Open it. I frowned, picking it up. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled out the papers inside. And the moment I saw what they were, I stopped breathing. A bank statement. A legal document. A transfer of funds. And at the bottom? My name. My nephew smiled. We set up an account for you. I blinked, my brain not processing. What? My niece grinned. You spent your whole life taking care of us. Making sure we never felt alone. Supporting us when no one else would. And now? It's our turn. I looked down at the paper again. The amount made my head spin. They had pulled their money together. And they had given me enough to retire. My hands started shaking. I can't accept this. My nephew's smile faltered. Why not? Because I didn't do this for money. I did it because I love you. His face softened. We know, he said gently. That's why we want to do this. Because we love you too. I felt tears spill down my cheeks. For years I had worried. Wondered if I had done enough. If I had given them enough love to make up for the one they had lost. And now? They were showing me that I had. I reached out, gripping their hands, unable to stop crying. Thank you. They smiled. And for the first time in a long time I felt truly appreciated. But then, Diana found out. And all hell broke loose. The first sign of trouble came a week later. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Diana's number. Over. And over. And over. I ignored it. Because honestly, I didn't know her a damn thing. But she wasn't the type to let things go. So she did what she always did. She showed up unannounced. I was in my living room enjoying the rare peace when I heard the pounding on my door. Not knocking. Pounding. I sighed, already knowing who it was. Sure enough, when I opened the door, there she stood. Diana. Fuming. Where's my money? She snapped. I blinked. Excuse me. She pushed past me, storming into my house like she owned the place. You think I wouldn't find out? That my own kids gave you money that should have gone to me. I stared at her speechless. She was serious. She actually thought she was entitled to the money they had worked for. I let out a slow breath, closing the door behind me. Diana, you abandoned them. She scoffed. Oh, get off your high horse. I raised them for 18 years. I laughed. Actually laughed. No, you didn't. You neglected them for 18 years. And the second they were old enough, they ran. And now? You expect them to hand over their success to you? She crossed her arms, eyes burning with rage. They're my children. I gave them life. The least they can do is take care of their mother. Something inside me snapped. I took a step closer. And for the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't frustrated. I was just done. You didn't give them life, Diana. You gave them trauma. And now that they've finally escaped you, they're choosing to help someone who actually gave a damn about them. And you hate that. Because deep down, you know you don't deserve it. She flinched. Her jaw was clenched. And then, she did something that made me laugh again. She stomped her foot like a child. I'm their mother, she screamed. That money is mine. I took a deep breath. Then I walked to my front door, opened it, and turned back to her. Get out. She blinked. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm dead serious. And before you leave, let me be clear, if you try to harass them, guilt them, or take a single cent from them, I will personally make sure you never see a dime. Ever. Her mouth opened. Closed. Then finally she stormed out. And as the door slammed shut behind her, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Relief. Because for the first time, she had no power over me. No power over them. And that was priceless. The moment Diana stormed out of my house, I half expected her to come back pounding on the door. Because that's what she always did. She never accepted defeat. She never let things go. And she damn sure never took responsibility for her actions. But this time, she didn't come back. And for a brief moment, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, she was finally done. I should have known better. Because of Diana, she wasn't done. Not even close. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from my nephew. Nephew, did you tell Mom about the money? I frowned. Me, no. She found out on her own. Nephew, yeah. She just called me. She's furious. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Me, what did she say? Nephew, she wants me to do the right thing and give her my savings. She said it's what a good son would do. I gritted my teeth. Of course she did. Because in Diana's world, everything was about her. A few minutes later, my niece texted. Niece, Mom just called me. She's crying, saying we abandoned her, that we owe her for everything she did for us. I clenched my jaw. She was using the guilt card. And I knew exactly why. Because she didn't have anything else left. She had burned every bridge. Now she was scrambling, desperate to latch onto whatever she could. And her last move was trying to shame them into submission. But the thing is, she underestimated them. Because for the first time in their lives, they weren't afraid of her anymore. A few hours later, my nephew called. "Auntie, I don't know what to do." I could hear the frustration in his voice. "She keeps calling, leaving voicemails, saying she's struggling financially and that she needs help. But I know if I give her a cent, she'll just waste it." I took a deep breath. "You don't owe her anything." Silence. Then, "But she's our mother." I closed my eyes, my heart aching for him. Because no matter how awful she was, no matter how much pain she caused them, a part of them still wanted to believe she could change. But she wouldn't. She never would. "Listen to me," I said softly. "I know it's hard. I know it feels wrong. But you have to ask yourself. If she weren't your mother, if she were just some woman on the street asking for money, would you give it to her?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then finally, "No." "Then that's your answer." He let out a long breath. I feel guilty. That's because she raised you to. And that was the truth. Diana had spent years drilling into them that they owed her. No matter how much she hurt them, they should still be grateful for everything she did. But the reality? She hadn't raised them. She had survived them. She had treated them like burdens, like obstacles, like things she could just discard when they no longer served her. And now, she wanted to cash in on their success. But it wasn't going to happen. Not this time. Not ever again. A few days passed. And then, Diana did something even worse. She didn't just call them. She called my parents. And she fed them lie after lie after lie. My mom was the first to call me. "Claire, I just got off the phone with Diana. She said you're turning the kids against her. That you convinced them to cut her off." I sighed. "No, Mom. Diana did that herself. She's their mother," she insisted. "They should help her." I laughed bitterly. Help her? The same way she helped them? By ignoring them? By blaming them for her failures? She was struggling, Claire. Parenting isn't easy. "No one said it was easy," I snapped. "But it's a parent's job to put their kids first, not the other way around." She fell silent, because she knew I was right. Then, my dad called. "Claire, can't you talk to them? Get them to just give her something? She's in a rough spot." I gritted my teeth. "No, Dad. They owe her nothing. But she's family. She stopped being family when she abandoned them." Silence. And then, "I just don't want to see the family fall apart over this." I closed my eyes. "Dad, the family already fell apart. Diana made sure of that years ago." He didn't argue, because he knew it was true. After that, the calls stopped. Diana had realized she had lost. And when she finally accepted that she wasn't getting a single cent, she disappeared. Again. No calls. No texts. Just silence. And honestly, it was the best gift she had ever given them. A few weeks later, my niece called me. "We want to take you on a trip, Auntie." I blinked. "A trip?" "Yeah. You've spent your whole life taking care of us. Now it's time we take care of you." Tears filled my eyes. "You don't have to do that." She laughed. "We know. That's why we want to." And for the first time in my life, I let them, because I finally understood something. Love isn't about who's related to you. It's about who chooses you. And those kids, they had always chosen me. And I would always choose them, no matter what. For the first time in years, Diana was gone. No more angry calls. No more guilt trips. No more demands for money. Just silence. And honestly, felt like a weight had been lifted off all of us. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't last. Because people like Diana, they don't just give up. They wait. They scheme. And when you least expect it, they strike. A few months passed. Life moved on. The kids, my kids really were thriving. My nephew had just started his own private practice. My nieces were expanding their businesses. And me, I was finally allowing myself to breathe, to enjoy what I had built. I took them up on their offer and let them spoil me a little. Trips, dinners, even just quiet afternoons together, where we didn't talk about the past. Because we didn't need to. We had already won. Or at least, that's what I thought. Until Diana came back. With a lawyer. I was sitting in my kitchen, enjoying my morning coffee, when the doorbell rang. At first, I thought it was one of the kids. Maybe they were surprising me with breakfast. But when I opened the door, a stranger stood there. A man in a suit holding an official-looking envelope. "Are you Claire?" he asked. I frowned. "Yes." He handed me the envelope. "You've been served." I felt nauseous. My hands shook as I ripped open the envelope. And the moment I read the first line, I froze. Petition for financial restitution and parental compensation. I had to read it 3 times before it sank in. Diana was suing me. Suing me for the money her kids gave me. And her reasoning? It was even more insane. According to the document, Diana was demanding a full refund of the money her children had given me, claiming it was wrongfully obtained. Additional damages for emotional distress due to alienation from her children. A monthly stipend to be paid to her as reparations for the years she spent raising them. I actually laughed out loud. She was suing me because her own children chose to give me money? Because she thought she was entitled to it instead? This was beyond delusional. But she wasn't just being ridiculous. She was dangerous. Because if she actually managed to pull this off, she could legally force them to pay her. And that? It wasn't going to happen. I called my lawyer immediately. She was incredulous. "You're kidding," she said, flipping through the documents. "I wish I was." She shook her head. "She doesn't have a case. But we still have to fight it." Then let's fight. Because there was no way in hell I was letting Diana steal from them again. The court date was set. And the moment Diana saw me walk into that courtroom, she smirked, like she had already won, like she had beaten me. And that was her first mistake. Because she had no idea what was coming. The judge read over the case. Diana's lawyer stood up first. He painted her as a poor, struggling mother who had dedicated her life to raising her children, only to be betrayed when they turned against her. He argued that she had been financially devastated, and that I had manipulated her kids into giving me money that rightfully belonged to her. I clenched my fists under the table, because every word was a lie. Then, it was my turn, and I didn't hold back. I stood up and looked the judge straight in the eye. "Your Honor, let me be clear. I never asked for a single cent from those kids. They gave it to me because they love me. Because I raised them when their mother refused to." Diana huffed, but I ignored her. Diana abandoned her children the moment they became inconvenient. She spent years treating them like burdens. And when they finally escaped her, she decided she wanted their money instead. I turned to the judge. She isn't here because she wants justice. She's here because she ran out of ways to control them. And this is her last-ditch effort to sink her claws into them again. The judge frowned. He turned to Diana. "Miss Diana, do you have any proof that the defendant coerced or manipulated your children into giving her money?" Diana blinked, then stammered. I mean, she's always been around, influencing them. "Yes or no, Miss Diana? Do you have proof?" She opened and closed her mouth. She had nothing. And the judge? He knew it. The ruling was swift. Case dismissed. No money. No damages. Nothing. Diana stood there, stunned, as the judge packed up his papers and walked out. She turned to me, seething. "This isn't over," she hissed. I smiled. "Yes, Diana, it is." Then I walked out, because she wasn't worth another second of my time. The kids were waiting for me outside the courthouse. When they saw my face, they grinned. "We won?" my niece asked. "We won." My nephew sighed in relief. I was ready to throw hands. I laughed. She never stood a chance. We went out to celebrate that night. And for the first time in a long time, Diana wasn't even a thought in my mind. Because she didn't matter. Not anymore. It's been 2 years since that day. Diana never reached out again. Maybe she finally realized she had nothing left to take. Or maybe she was just waiting for her next scheme. Either way, it doesn't matter. Because I don't think about her. I think about them. The kids who grew into amazing, successful, kind adults. The ones who chose me to be their family. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. Because love isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. And I will always show up. I thought winning in court would be the end of it, that Diana would finally accept defeat and disappear for good. And for a while, that's exactly what happened. She went completely silent. No calls. No texts. No sudden appearances at my front door screaming about how the world had wronged her. For the first time in decades, it felt like we were truly free of her. But deep down, I knew better. Because Diana wasn't the type to just let things go. And sure enough, she came back. Worse than before. It started small. Little things at first. Anonymous comments under my nephew's medical practice reviews. He's an arrogant fraud who abandoned his mother. Fake accounts messaging my niece's business page. Wow, must be nice to be rich enough to throw money at your aunt instead of helping your real family. Even my youngest niece, the teacher, got harassed. Parents at her school started getting emails claiming she was a dangerous influence on students. All anonymous. All filled with the same bitter, hateful words. And we all knew exactly who it was. Diana. At first, we tried to ignore it. We had one. We had cut her out. What could she possibly do now? But then, it escalated. Fast. One night, my nephew called me. Auntie, did you see the article? I blinked. What article? He sighed. Check your email. It's bad. I opened my laptop and there it was. An entire blog post on some shady gossip website. The headline? Ungrateful children abandon their struggling mother while lavishing money on another woman. My stomach dropped. She hadn't just gone after them. She was going after me. The article was filled with outrageous lies. According to it, I had stolen Diana's children from her. I had turned them against their real mother for my benefit. It painted Diana as a devoted single mother who had given everything to her children only to be betrayed by them in favor of their manipulative, controlling aunt. It even claimed I had tricked them into giving me money and was now living off their hard-earned success. I felt physically ill, because even though it was all insane, even though anyone who knew us would never believe it. The internet? The internet loves a scandal. And Diana? She had just given them one. Within hours, the post was everywhere. It spread across Facebook, Twitter, and even Reddit. Strangers, people who knew nothing about our lives, started picking sides. Some called Diana out, pointing out inconsistencies in her story. But others? They believed her. And they were angry. I woke up the next morning to dozens of hate messages. How could you manipulate innocent kids for money? You stole from their real mother. Shame on you. Gold-digging hag. Hope you rot. It didn't stop at me. The kids were getting them too. And that's when I knew. Diana wasn't just trying to hurt us. She was trying to ruin us. I called a lawyer. Can we take legal action? I asked. She sighed. We can try. But proving defamation is tough, especially when it's online. Have you spoken to the website's owner? We tried. But the owner? Refused to take it down. They claimed it was free speech, that Diana had a right to share her side of the story. I wanted to scream. What about our side? What about the truth? The kids wanted to fight back. My nephew especially. I can release statements, show proof, do interviews. But I stopped him. No. Because that's exactly what Diana wanted. She wanted us to engage. To get dragged into an endless battle of words. She wanted attention. And we weren't going to give it to her. Instead, we did something she never expected. We ignored her. It wasn't easy. For weeks, people kept talking. But eventually, the internet did what it always does. It moved on. People forgot. The outrage faded. And Diana? She lost the one thing she craved most. Relevance. She tried one last stunt. A sob story interview with some low-level internet talk show host. She cried. Talked about how much she missed her children. How she had sacrificed everything for them. How I had stolen them away. But by then, people were tired of her story. They had seen too many holes. And instead of the sympathy she was hoping for, she got mocked. The comments were brutal. Lady, your kids don't talk to you for a reason. This is the worst acting I've ever seen. I hope they sue you. And just like that, her final attempt to destroy us blew up in her face. After that, she disappeared again. But this time, we all knew it was for good. Because she had finally realized something. She had no more power over us. No more control. Nothing left to take. And that was the real victory. It's been 3 years since she last tried to contact us. The kids are thriving more than ever. My nephew got engaged. My nieces are expanding their businesses. And me? I finally feel at peace. Because Diana may have been our past. But she has no place in our future. And in the end, that's the best revenge of all. For the first time in years, life was peaceful. Diana was gone. No more chaos. No more manipulation. No more waking up to hate messages or dealing with her ridiculous schemes. It was like a storm had finally passed. And in its wake? Calm. But even after everything, I still felt a lingering weight. Not guilt. Not regret. But something else. Something I hadn't allowed myself to think about in a long time. The fact that no matter how much we won, we would never get back what she stole from us. I was sitting on my back porch watching the sun dip below the trees when my phone rang. My nephew. Hey, Auntie. Busy? Never too busy for you. He chuckled. So, we've been talking. We? Me, the girls, everyone. I raised an eyebrow. Should I be concerned? Maybe. I could hear the smirk in his voice. We want to do something for you. You already have. No, Auntie. Not like this. I frowned. What are you planning? Pack a bag. We'll pick you up tomorrow. Then, before I could argue, he hung up. I stared at my phone, shaking my head. Because whatever they were up to, I knew it was going to be big. And I had no idea what was coming. The next morning, a car pulled up to my house. My nephew grinned from the driver's seat. Ready? I climbed in. Are you going to tell me where we're going? Nope. I glanced at my nieces in the back. They just smirked. This is feeling suspicious. My nephew laughed. Just trust us. So I did. And 2 hours later, when we finally pulled up to our destination, I forgot how to breathe. It was a house. Not just any house. A beautiful, cozy, newly built home nestled in the countryside. It had a wraparound porch, huge windows, a sprawling backyard that stretched into forever. And on the front door, a big red bow. I turned to them, my heart pounding. What is this? My niece smiled. It's yours. My mouth dropped open. What? My nephew grinned. We bought it for you, Auntie. A fresh start. A home that's truly yours. I blinked, stunned. No. No way. This is too much. My other niece shook her head. You gave us everything. You took us in when no one else would. You gave up your own life to make sure we had a future. This is the least we can do. I felt tears spill down my cheeks. Because I had never, in my wildest dreams, imagined something like this. I can't accept this, I whispered. My nephew smirked. Too late. The paperwork is already signed. I laughed through my tears. Because, of course, they had thought of everything. And standing there, looking at that house, my house, I finally let go of something I didn't even realize I'd been holding onto. The years of struggle. The exhaustion. The feeling of being stuck in a past I had never chosen. For the first time in decades, I felt free. We walked inside and I felt like I was dreaming. It was perfect. Everything I had ever wanted in a home. The living room was bright and warm. The kitchen had my favorite countertops. The backyard had space for a garden. They had thought of everything. My niece nudged me. Check the office. I frowned. Office? She grinned. I walked down the hallway, pushed open the last door, and stopped dead. Because of the walls? They were covered in photos. Photos of them from childhood to now. Moments I had forgotten but they had held on to. I held them when they were little. Helping with homework. Watching my nephew graduate. My niece's first salon. All the memories we built together. My knees went weak. I had to sit down. Because I finally realized they had never just seen me as an aunt. I had always been so much more. And now? They were making sure I never forgot it. I turned to them speechless. Why? I finally whispered. My nephew smiled. Because we love you, Auntie. And because you deserve this. My niece squeezed my hand. We want you to finally live for yourself. And that's when it hit me. For years I had given them everything I had. Not because I had to. Not because I was trying to make up for Diana's failures. But because I loved them. And now? They were showing me that love right back. I had spent my whole life making sure they had a future. Now they were making sure I had one, too. It's been a year since I moved into that house. And every morning I wake up feeling grateful. Not just for the home. Not just for peace. But for the family we built. Diana may have given birth to them. But I raised them. I gave them love when no one else would. And in the end, they chose me. And that means more than anything. It's been over a year since I moved into my new home. A year of quiet mornings on my porch sipping coffee as the sun rises. A year of peace. No more chaos. No more drama. And most importantly, no more Diana. At first, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. For her to come storming back into our lives with another ridiculous scheme. But she didn't. After the court case, the online smear campaign, the public humiliation. She finally realized she had nothing left to take. No money. No power. No control. And when she couldn't manipulate us anymore, she did what she always did. She ran. Word got around that she had moved out of state. I don't know where. I don't care. All I know is that she never reached out again. Not to me. Not to the kids. Not even to my parents. She just vanished. And honestly, that was the best thing she could have done. As for me, life has been better than ever. I finally started doing things for myself. I took up gardening, something I always wanted to do but never had time for. I traveled for the first time in years. I even adopted a dog, a scrappy little mutt who follows me everywhere. And through it all, the kids have been right by my side. Because even though they're busy with their own lives, they never let me forget that I'm family. That I will always be their family. A few weeks ago, we had a family dinner. Sitting around the table, laughing, telling stories. It felt like something out of a movie. All those years of pain, struggle, and uncertainty had finally led us to this moment. At one point, my youngest niece raised her glass. A toast. We all lifted our drinks, smiling. She looked at me, her eyes full of warmth. To Auntie, the only real parent we ever had. My throat closed. Because in that moment, everything we had been through, everything we had survived. It didn't feel like a burden anymore. It felt like a gift. A reminder that love isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. And I will always show up for them. Just like they showed up for me. Because that's what a real family does. Hope you enjoyed this story as much as I do. Help this small channel grow by hitting that like button, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. Every bit of support means the world. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.